The third Sunday of every month was Welfare Sunday at Grace Pavilion Church. That was the day the church remembered the widows, the sick, and anybody whose problem could enter one envelope without causing emergency meeting. After worship, Elder Bassi climbed the altar with a microphone and a smile wide enough to collect offering by itself. Then two ushers stood behind him, and beside them was a sewing machine decorated with a red ribbon. Grace Pavilion is not just a church. We are one big family, Elder Bassi announced. Mama Ngozi leaned towards the widow beside her. Now so, a family where some people are eating chicken lap while the rest of us are eating the feet or even only smelling the soup. Her friend pressed her lips together so that she would not laugh and embarrass the Widows Association. Elder Bassi continued, Today, we are supporting one hardworking widow who has remained faithful despite all her challenges. Mama Ngozi folded her arms. If they call Madam Blessing again, I will check whether my own husband died correctly. Wetin happen? Haba, keep quiet, her friend warned her. Then Elder Bassi stretched his hands towards the second row. Madam Blessing, please come forward. Mama Ngozi nodded slowly. I knew it. This woman has permanent accommodation on this altar. Madam Blessing stood with one hand already on her chest. She walked forward slowly, shaking her head as if heaven had sent her a private alert. The moment she saw the sewing machine, she covered her mouth. Oh my God! The congregation clapped loudly. Elder Bassi handed her the microphone and she started crying immediately. Her shoulders joined the testimony before her mouth could even settle down. Since my husband died, this church has become my husband, she cried. Everybody shouted, Amen. Mama Ngozi looked around. Then some of us must be second wives because this husband has never given us ordinary Maggie. Her friend laughed and quickly converted it into a cough. Madam Blessing thanked the pastor, the welfare department, the women's group, and even the person who tied the ribbon. The media team took pictures from every angle while Elder Bassi stood beside her, smiling as if he had personally sold his land to buy the machine. Tonia watched from the side. She had recently been appointed welfare secretary because she worked in a bank and understood figures. She thought the work would involve checking receipts and helping people. She didn't know church welfare could carry more mystery than family land. After service, several widows followed her into the church. One of the women, Mama Chinyere, placed a hospital bill on the table. My daughter, I submitted this 2 months ago. Nobody has called me. Another widow raised her rent notice. They told me the welfare account is empty. Mama Ngozi pointed towards the altar. The account is empty, but it still gave birth to sewing machine. Elder Bassi then entered and smiled. Mothers, please understand. The needs are many, but the resources are few. Mama Ngozi looked at him. Very few, except when Madam Blessing appears. Elder Bassi laughed awkwardly. Mama Ngozi, you will not kill somebody in this church. I am not killing anybody. I am only observing that favor has choice. Later that afternoon, Tonia started arranging the welfare records. Madam Blessing's name appeared again and again. Food support in January, school fees in March, business assistance in April, another payment in June. Tonia stopped at the June entry. Madam Blessing has signed 450,000 naira as annual rent support. Tonia frowned. Everybody knew Madam Blessing lived in her late husband's family house. She had no landlord and she never complained about rent. Yet her name was there. Her signature was there. And the money was gone. Tonia closed the file and said, maybe Mama Ngozi had been joking. But Madam Blessing was beginning to look like a widow who had mastered the welfare department better than the people running it. By Monday morning, Tonia took the welfare files home. She had told herself she only wanted to arrange them properly. But nobody arranges 27 old files at midnight. except the person was investigating something. The deeper she checked, the more figures were misbehaving. A bag of rice that cost 40,000 naira outside was written as 75k. Three plastic chairs somehow became 12. One receipt carried the name of a supermarket that had closed 2 years earlier. Even the signatures looked confused. Some were neat, some were shaking. One looked as if chicken had stepped inside ink and then walked across the paper. Then on Tuesday, Tonia started visiting the widows whose names appeared in the records. Mama Eunice was the first. According to the file, she had received a standing fan during the Easter welfare program. Standing fan, ke? Mama Eunice repeated. Yes, Mama. The woman looked around her hot sitting room, where one tired hand fan was resting beside her. My daughter, if that fan is standing anywhere, please tell it to come home, because heat is dealing with me. Tonia tried not to laugh. But Ma, did you receive anything at all? They gave me one small envelope. How much was inside? 5,000 naira. Tonia checked the file again. 35,000 naira and the standing fan had been recorded under Mama Eunice's name. Mama, did you sign this form? The woman brought the paper closer to her face. Nne, this is not my signature. I know my handwriting has arthritis, but it is not this ugly. The next widow supposedly received 2 bags of rice and a blender. She laughed until tears started coming out. Blender ke. What will I blend when there is no light? By the time Tonia visited 4 women, her notebook was full. Everywhere she turned, items were missing, amounts were inflated, and signatures belonged to people nobody knew. However, Madam Blessing's own records were different. Her signatures looked consistent. Her name appeared clearly. She had collected food support, school fees, rent money, business assistance, and now a sewing machine. Unlike the other widows, Madam Blessing never complained that her name had been used, and that made Tonia very uncomfortable. So on Wednesday afternoon, she returned to church to photocopy some documents. And as she came close to the junction, she saw Madam Blessing walking ahead of 2 young men. Between them was a shiny sewing machine from Welfare Sunday. And even though the red ribbon had been removed, Tonia still recognized the small silver scratch near the wheel. She slowed down. Madam Blessing looked left and right before leading the men into a warehouse behind Elder Bassey's provision shop. Tonia stopped beside a woman selling roasted corn and stared. The woman followed her eyes and said, Madam, do you want corn? No. Then why are you looking as if the corn stole your husband? Tonia decided to buy one corn just to end the conversation. She waited across the road until Madam Blessing came out alone. Madam Blessing. The woman jumped slightly. Ah, Tonia, what are you doing here? I came to ask the same thing of you. Madam Blessing looked towards the warehouse. What do you mean? The sewing machine the church gave you on Sunday just entered Elder Bassey's warehouse. For 1 second, Madam Blessing said nothing. Then she smiled. I brought it for adjustment. It wasn't working well. Tonia was confused. She looked at the warehouse sign and said, Ah, inside the warehouse provision store? Elder Bassey knows somebody who repairs the machines. So why did 2 men carry you through the back door then? Madam Blessing's face tightened. Tonia, you ask plenty questions. Maybe you should register with the police. I am the welfare secretary. Questions are part of the work, you know. Madam Blessing moved closer and lowered her voice. My sister, I beg, leave this matter alone. Why is that? Nne, you are young. Don't use your bank work to scatter what you don't understand. Before Tonia could respond, she walked away quickly. That evening, Tonia returned to the welfare office and opened the church media folder. She searched through pictures from old programs, church outreach, widow's Sunday, pastor's birthday. Then she saw the same black sewing machine had been presented to Mama Cecilia the previous December. Tonia zoomed in. The silver scratch was there. She opened another picture and saw the same machine. Hmm. The sewing machine had received more altar calls than some church members. By Thursday, Tonia had stopped trusting anything that carried a ribbon. She started visiting the widows again, far from the church office where walls could develop ears. She went to Mama Cecilia, one of the women that took pictures with the traveling sewing machine. Mama, did the church give you that machine last Christmas? Mama Cecilia sighed. My dear, they gave me in front of camera oh, and after the camera, they collected it. Tonya stared at her. Who collected it? Two boys from the welfare department came and said another widow needed it urgently. Did you report them? Mama Cecilia shook her head. How would I explain that they gave me something, collected it, and I still thank God on the altar? People will say I was ungrateful now. Well, that wasn't all. The next widow had her own story. They gave me 2 bags of rice on Sunday. By Monday morning, Elder Bass's boys came and carried 1.5. Mama Florence said. Tonia frowned. How did they carry half? They opened the bag and measured it though. My daughter, fraud can be very organized. Another woman had received 50,000 naira inside a large envelope. And after service, Elder Bassi collected 40,000 and left her with 10. He said the amount was big for the camera, she explained. Mama Ngozi, who had joined them, hissed. So the camera was the real widow then? The women laughed. By evening, the pattern was clear. Elder Bassi presented large gifts publicly, collected most of them back, and recorded the full amount in the church books. The widows kept quiet because they feared being called greedy. If somebody gives you 10,000 and tells you to smile, you will smile first now, before they will even collect the 10,000, one woman said. Sonia went home that day and opened Madam Blessing's file again. Her case looked worse than the others. She appeared in almost all of these programs. Her signatures matched, and she gave dramatic testimonies and personally returned the sewing machine. To Tonia, she no longer looked like a helpless widow. She looked like his partner in crime. The next morning, Tonia arranged the records and planned to report the both of them to the senior pastor. But before she could leave, her phone rang. And lo and behold, it was Madam Blessing. I know you've been asking questions, she said. Good, then you know why. If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow morning. Meet you where? Why not inside the church? Madam Blessing laughed dryly, because church walls have ears. She sent the address and said, come alone and don't bring your church face. Just bring your sense. The address Madam Blessing sent Tonia led her to a small salon, and Madam Blessing sat under a hairdryer that wasn't working. Tonia looked around. Why are we meeting inside a salon? Because nobody suspects serious crime under a hairdryer. Okay, oh. Tonia remained standing. You have 10 minutes before I take everything to the senior pastor. Well, fair enough, Madam Blessing said, placing an old phone on the table. 3 years ago, my daughter needed an emergency operation. I applied for welfare support, but the committee said their next meeting was in 2 weeks. She couldn't wait. She could barely wait 2 days. So, as a result of that, Elder Bassi offered to help. He transferred 150,000 naira from the welfare account and told me to sign a form marked rent assistance because medical support required approval from the whole team. I knew I was wrong, she admitted. But my child was on a hospital bed. At that moment, English left my head. Tonia looked at her and asked, did you use the money for the operation then? Yes, I kept every hospital receipt though. I used everything for the operation. Tonia folded her arms. So how did that become sewing machines and bags of rice? Well, after my daughter recovered, Elder Bassi reminded me that I had signed for rent I never paid. He said if anybody investigated, my signature would send me to prison before he finished explaining. So, you joined him? Well, at first, he asked me to stand beside one bag of rice and give testimony. Then it became envelopes, school fees, machines, and plenty blessings that never followed me home. They never followed you home. So why did you not report him? To whom, Tonia? The same leaders who called him the father of widows every Sunday. Madam Blessing then unlocked her phone. There were messages, photographs, and voice notes. One of the messages read, "Return the machine before Wednesday." Another one said, "Cry well tomorrow. The donors' representatives will be present." Tonia looked at her. "He told you to cry well?" Madam Blessing laughed a little. "My dear, that man used to direct my tears like a village film producer." Tonia continued scrolling. "Why did you keep all of these receipts?" "Because I was afraid. I mean, he was gathering documents against me, threatening me, so I had to start gathering my own." "So wait oh, those tears on the altar were fake?" Madam Blessing frowned. "My sister, half of it was shame. The remaining half was because they made me kneel for too long. My knees, they have suffered in this ministry." Tonia laughed, then became serious immediately. "Well, Madam Blessing, you still helped him deceive widows and innocent people." "I know. I am not asking you to defend me. I am asking you to help me end this." After they finished, Tonia left with some hope. The following Sunday was Grace Pavilion's annual compassion service. Donors were invited. Cameras were ready, and a large deep freezer was beside the altar under a white cloth. Before service, Elder Bassey pulled Madam Blessing aside. "See, this one is important. The freezer must return to the warehouse by Monday afternoon." Madam Blessing nodded. "What should I say, sir?" Say the church has changed your life." "Ah, Elder, but he has changed it so many times." He smiled and missed the sarcasm completely. During the service, Elder Bassey climbed the altar and started his usual speech. "We are one big family. At Grace Pavilion, we do not only preach love, we demonstrate it." Mama Ngozi whispered, "Yes, so then they collect the demonstration back." Elder Bassey removed the cloth dramatically, and the congregation clapped as the freezer appeared. "And once again, we are supporting our beloved Madam Blessing." Madam Blessing walked forward. The media team moved closer, and Elder Bassey handed her the microphone, waiting for tears and testimony. She looked at the freezer, then she looked at him. "Elder Bassey, should I return this one today or tomorrow morning?" Uh-uh. People stopped clapping immediately, and even the drummer removed his hands from the drum. Everywhere was quiet. Elder Bassey looked at Madam Blessing and said, Madam Blessing, what do you mean by return it?" She held the microphone firmly and continued, "I mean, should your boys carry this freezer after service? Or should I bring it to your warehouse tomorrow?" People started murmuring all over the church. Elder Bassey forced himself to smile. "Our sister is overwhelmed." Mama Ngozi shouted from the back, "No, she's not overwhelmed though. She's asking for your collection time, tax collector." Tonia walked towards the altar with her laptop and a file. Then the senior pastor stood up immediately. "Tonia, what is happening?" "So sorry, sir, but please allow us to show you something." She connected the laptop to the projector, and the first picture showed the same freezer being presented to another widow the previous Christmas. The next showed it again at a welfare program 6 months later. The dent near the handle was visible in all three photographs. People started shouting. Mama Ngozi pointed at the screen. "This freezer has been helping widows without leaving the church." Elder Bassey moved towards Tonia. "This is a private matter." Tonia looked at him. "Eh? You presented the gifts publicly, sir, so we might as well present this evidence publicly." As if that was not embarrassing enough, Madam Blessing opened her phone and played a voice note. And Elder Bassey was saying, Make sure the freezer returns to the warehouse by Monday afternoon. Another voice note followed. The donors will be present, so make the testimony very emotional. Elder Bassey's face changed. Those recordings have been edited. This is AI. Madam Blessing looked at him, then let the police check it by themselves. That was when the other widows found the courage to speak up. Mama Cecilia stood up. The sewing machine they gave me was collected the next morning. Another widow raised her hand. They presented 50,000 naira to me, but I went home with only 10,000. Mama Florence spoke next. They gave me 2 bags of rice and came back and collected 1.5. Mama Ngozi turned sharply. They collected half a bag too? Ah, my sister, they came with another sack for the operation. Oh. The church erupted. The pastor called for silence and then faced Elder Bassey. Elder Bassey, why were full amounts entered in the records? What is going on here? Elder Bassey adjusted his jacket and said, Sir, I was managing limited resources. It wasn't my fault. By keeping them in your warehouse, I was only trying to encourage more donations. Oh. Mama Ngozi shook her head and said, So you were using widows to advertise what they did not deserve? Elder Bassey did not have an answer, and the pastor entered the service and called an emergency meeting. And with immediate effect, Elder Bassey was removed from the welfare department immediately and ordered to hand over the records and the keys to his warehouse. By Monday morning, the trustees and auditor and the police were there when the warehouse was opened. Inside were bags of rice, standing fans, sewing machines, even the deep freezer and cartons of food donated to the church. Some still had ribbons on them. It happened that this man has been diverting church welfare money for years. He tried to blame Madam Blessing, but her messages, her voice notes, and the hospital receipts showed how he had trapped her after helping her with her daughter's surgery. Madam Blessing also admitted her part. I was afraid. I am sorry. I stayed silent for too long. I am so sorry. She apologized to the widows and agreed to repay the small amounts she had received, even though the pastor told her to keep it. As for Elder Bassey, he was reported formally and prosecuted. His shop and warehouse stock were used during the recovery process, and the church refunded several widows whose names had been used. All the welfare items that were recovered were also distributed to those widows, and Grace Pavilion changed the welfare system completely. There were no more public presentations. Hospitals, schools, and landlords were paid directly, and every transaction required 2 approvals. Months later, Madam Blessing received a sewing machine for her tailoring business. This time, it was given to her inside the welfare office. No camera, no testimony, no collection van waiting outside. She touched the machine and asked Tonia quietly, Is this truly mine? Tonia nodded. I will not need to return this one tomorrow. Tonia smiled, handed her the receipt and said, Take it home. It's yours. Madam Blessing signed her name and carried the machine away gingerly without looking back. And for once, the gift followed the widows home and remained with them. Madam Blessing went home that day with more than a sewing machine. She went home with the peace that comes when fear finally loses its hold. The widows also learned that silence may protect shame for a while, but it can give wickedness room to grow. And also, help should never be used to control people. And kindness that must be returned was never kindness in the first place. The end. And so, my paddies, we've come to the end of today's story. I hope you learned a thing or two from this story. And if you did, kindly share them with us in the comment section below. Have you experienced something like this or anything at all like this in any of the church you've attended? Please share with us the experience in the comment section below so that we can all discuss and learn. If you watched till the end, you already know. You're my person. You're my paddy. and I am sending you a sweet virtual hug. Don't forget to like the video. Make sure you like, okay? And share it with everybody that you know. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Naya, and I drop back-to-back stories on this channel. So kindly subscribe and stick around because you're gonna love it here. Okay, until I bring another story your way, my paddies, remember to remain kind. Ngwanu, bye.